Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Shane and I'm delighted to be joined by Bert Janssen, Microsoft Belgium, who will be talking to you today about transforming your existing classic SharePoint sites into modern sites. Remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC20. Don't forget to check out the Resource Center. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the content link at the top. Join us next week for Teams Week, where we have a variety of blogs, ebooks, and webinars, all available for free and all online. Check out sharepointeurope.com for full details. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you have in the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation and during the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter, Bert Janssen. Hello, Bert.
Hello, Shane. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Let me show my screen real quick. All right. So, Shane, can you quickly confirm to see the screen?
I can see it. Take it away, Bert.
All right. Thank you. So, welcome, everyone. Today's session is around how you can transform your existing classic SharePoint sites into modern sites. Why? Because, well, many customers of Microsoft still have classic SharePoint sites. SharePoint has been around from SharePoint, 2007 timeframe, even before, but let's say current SharePoint 2007 up until now, which is quite a long time. So there's lots of old content, and how can you then take that older content, those old sites, and kind of modernize it? That's what this is all about. All right, so agenda for today, an overview of modernization. What is it? What are the steps that you can take? Which order can you take the steps, etc. Demo time and next steps and Q&A. Now for the Q&A, feel free to ask questions already using the chat window during my talk. I'll watch the chat window, I'll try to answer them, if applicable, during the talk already. If not, we'll cover them at the very end of the session. Good. There's actually one address that you should remember if you kind of walk away from the session, and that's the ak.ms/sppnp-modernize short link. This URL will bring you to the location containing everything around modernization. It talks about running the scanner, talks about page transformation, talks about modernizing your list and libraries. Everything is kind of gathered in that particular location. So that's the place to go if you want to learn more after the session. Now, let's first start to kind of decompose what does modernization mean? How do I modernize a site? And I've broken down the modernization task or journey in a number of steps. So first step, and this is the most obvious, the easiest one, and the one that you probably are the most far with already, is getting the most out of a modern list and library experience. Now, in SharePoint today, we already forced modern list and libraries for most of you. So normally you should be using modern list and libraries. Now, there still can be a couple of lists and libraries that are classic, and there can be reasons why. For example, you have two web parts on the same list page, just saying a common reason. So understanding the lists which are in classic and kind of remediating those to also work on modern, that's a good step to do in your modernization journey. Another important step is Group Connect and then Teamify. So what Group Connect will do is it will actually take your existing site. Let's imagine you have a team site, and it will create a create a Microsoft 365 group connected with a team site. Now, once we have a Microsoft 365 group connected to the team site, that group is kind of like a hub for other services. So for example, Teams. So with the group in place, you can take the next step, and that's teamify your site. Essentially saying like, create me a team for this site. At that point, your old site now is like a modern site because it has a Teams team connected to it. If you go to the Teams team, you see the files in your shared documents from your old site, for example. So kind of nicely things are getting connected together and provide modern value to you. Then the third block is around modernizing the pages. So your classic sites do have classic pages. So team sites typically have classic wiki pages and maybe even web art pages if it's a really old team site or blog pages. So you can actually modernize those and transform those into modern pages. And that's something that we'll actually show in the demo. And a fourth block here is transforming classic publishing portals. So many of you have classic portals in their environment, maybe still on-prem or already online, but you have a classic publishing portal. Now there is ways to bring that one forward, not as a classic publishing portal in SharePoint Online, but as a modern communication site. So essentially kind of do a lift and shift of your classic publishing pages into a modern communication site. And again, in demo, we'll quickly kind of touch upon this and show this one particular page. Now, when you work with SharePoint and you've been doing that for like a long time, you probably know that SharePoint is a bit like a Swiss Army knife. You can do lots of things with SharePoint and you can develop a lot on top of SharePoint as well. So if you did development in the past, you might need to revisit that development and rethink the development that you did. Some of the old development can probably be just left behind because it's not relevant anymore. If your custom code, your development is business relevant, then I would kind of advise you to have a look at the SharePoint framework as a way to rebuild that customization in a way that it kind of works with modern SharePoint, because most classic developments do not work anymore in the modern SharePoint UI. And the same applies a bit to branding. Really customized brandings from the past, they don't work anymore on modern pages. So for modern pages, we allow you to kind of set themes, and the theme is something that is controlled at a tenant level. So your tenant admin can define company themes, and then you can use those themes in your new sites. And that's something that we would recommend you doing going forward, instead of kind of using your classic themes. And then finally, but not least, is workflow and infopod. So if you have followed up on workflow, you have heard about our deprecation plans. Actually, we already deprecated workflow 2010 as of November the 1st. But there's still workflow 2013 out that is deprecated as well. No timeline there, but meaning it's important that you do something about your classic workflow and infopod if you want to move to modern, because these are classic technologies. Now, what can you do? How can you kind of tackle the problem, right? And we've kind of split up things in three pillars: learn, analyze, modernize. So the learn is, this learn pillar is there to kind of educate you on what is modern SharePoint, what's the value of modern SharePoint. There's a number of ways that you can do that. But I think what works best for us from experience is that if you create a modern environment, set of modern sites in your current SharePoint Online tenant and start playing with them, start customizing them, start showing them to other folks, I think that's the easiest way to learn about modern SharePoint and to kind of understand the value modern SharePoint brings to you. And for that, we have lookbook.microsoft.com, which is a site you can go to where you can just go look at existing site designs. So below here, you see some couple of site designs. You pick the site design that you want, that looks interesting to you, and you just apply that site design to your tenant. So essentially, the service will create a new site collection in your tenant and apply this template on top of that new site collection. So you can then have like a playground where you can experiment. And there's on that lookbook.microsoft.com, there's several sites. I think ones to highlight are the Learning Pathways site, which is a training site allowing you to kind of give your end users tailored training content on Microsoft 365. But we also have like a new employee onboarding site or SharePoint success site and many other kind of marketing type sites. Then moving to the second pillar, and that's around analyzing. So let's imagine you did the learning about modern SharePoint. You are convinced that it provides value for my organization. And now I want to start the journey. I want to modernize my classic SharePoint content. Now, where is my classic SharePoint content? How much do I have? How much work do I have? How do I quantify my modernization work? And for that, I think the best approach is to use the modernization scanner. The scanner is an open source tool that you can use, which will kind of crawl your tenant, read all the sites, all the lists and so on, and build reports around areas to modernize. So it supports list and libraries, group connect, pages, publishing portals, workflow, infopod, and blogs. In the demo, we'll show the scanner in action so you get a better feel about what it means. And then as third, but not last step, is like, okay, I did learn, I did analyze. Now I want to actually start modernizing. What kind of tools do you have, Microsoft? Do we need to start from scratch? There's something that can help me. Actually, there is tools that can help you. So we have what we call a modernization partner offering. Essentially, that offering was created for like consulting companies to deliver with their customers. So if you're like a consulting company, great, just take that offering. If you're a customer, you can take it as well, meaning it's a basic offering with PowerPoint, walking you through the steps that you can do to modernize. So it kind of combines all the resources into a nice end-to-end story for modernization. And one of the key techniques that offering uses is page transformation. So we already touched upon that in the introduction, but page transformation is a technology that can read any classic page, whether that's a wiki page, a publishing page, a web page, a blog page, and transform that page into a modern page, even if that page lives in SharePoint on premises. So if you have SharePoint 2010 on premises, for example, with a publishing portal, with page transformation, you can read those pages over there and create them as modern pages in a SharePoint online communication site. Good. I don't see any questions in the chat window, so I keep on going. If there's questions, don't hesitate to use the chat window for asking them. Now, a very commonly asked question to me when I talk about this and to other folks at Microsoft is like, is Classic going away? Are you taking away the classic SharePoint UI altogether? And the answer is currently, no, we're not doing that. We don't have any active timelines for doing that. But let's be honest and clear that our investment focus is completely on the modern UI. We're not doing anything anymore for the classic UIs. New features will only work on modern UIs. So if you do not modernize, it will be harder to use some of the new features that already are out or will be coming out in the future. So meaning you can still wait. It is still supported, it still runs. But if your site is a relevant site, a site that your business is using day in, day out, yeah, meaning it makes really sense to modernize it because it will provide them more value. So the answer is it is still there, but meaning how long? It will not be there forever. Let's say this. Good. We talked a bit about workflow, and I want to give a quick update on where we are with workflow because that's our active ongoing deprecation today. So what did we do? We announced the SharePoint 2010 workflow was deprecated and was going to be taken away, and that moment already happened actually because we on November the 1st we stopped SharePoint 2010 classic workflows from running in your tenant unless you've asked for an exception, and at that point you got like a half a year longer or so you get a bit more time to do the remediation work. But essentially, for like 99% of the tenants, 2010 workflows are shut down now. Now, SharePoint 2013 based workflows, they still run, they are supported. but they are deprecated as well. We don't have a timeline on which we'll actually stop running them, but we announce deprecation, and pretty soon we'll actually, for new tenants at least, we'll turn off the SharePoint 2013 workflow capability. A tenant can still enable it, but by default it will be turned off for new tenants in the future. If you have SharePoint 2013 workflows, I think the recommendation is to run the modernization scanner to understand your workflows. So you know which workflows that live in your environment. You can assess if they're business relevant or not, and then take action on modernizing them. And the typical modernization flow for workflows is Power Automate, which is our product inside Microsoft 365 for automation. But alternatively, you could also look at the ISV solutions that offer workflow tech as well. All right. I see there's a question. Are some of the web apps that are currently only available in classic sites being updated and made available for modern sites? Not sure what's really meant with the web apps, but if it's more around site templates, then no. Modern sites use different templates, and so you have a modern team site and a modern communication site. So that are the ones that are modern. The other ones will not as such be moved over. If it's about lists, most lists are modern. There are a couple of exceptions, like a classic task list, for example, and a calendar, but we're working on those. So those will improve over time. Right, I think we can move to demo. So in the demo, let's talk a bit about, well, actually, let me show you the modernization scanner and page transformation. So I'm going to flip to my desktop number 3, which I did. And first of all, let's show you our famous link. Did you still remember it? Let me paste it in over here. If I go ak.ms, and let's zoom, /sppnp-modernize. That's the place to remember. And if you do that, hit enter, you'll end up over here. And this kind of documentation node in docs.microsoft.com contains everything around modernization. So for example, it talks around how to modernize the user interface, how to get the best modern value out of your list and libraries, how to transform classic pages into modern pages. It talks about the scanner and so on. So everything is there for you to use. I think also the offering that I talked about. So here is the modernization guidance, so the step-by-step offering that you can apply as a consultant to your customer, or as a customer yourself, you can apply that as well. Good, but let's now talk a bit about the scanner. So if you go to the SharePoint Modernization Scanner section, click on Overview, you will see, you get explanation about what is the scanner, how to use it, and so on. So first step, when you want to scan for something, you have to grab the scanner, you have to get the scanner. So you can download the scanner from this link. The scanner is an .exe file. It's a Microsoft signed file, so it's safe to download it and to execute it, but you have to download it first. Then you have to prepare for the scan. So the scanner will typically need to read all the sites in your environment, so you have to give it access. There's a number of ways to give it access. The recommended one is Azure AD app only based access. And then you can configure the scanner and so on. But instead of walking you through documentation, I'll actually show the scanner in action. So I go over here. I already downloaded the scanner. So if I launch it, you will see a UI popping up quite soon. Here we are. It is a little bit small, but I'll zoom in a second. So in the scanner, first step, you have to define how to authenticate. So the best option is Azure AD app only, which requires you to create an Azure AD application and use that. So which I already did. So I have my Azure AD application ID over here and my domain name, and I'm going to just copy paste those values in like this. App-only access to SharePoint requires a certificate. So we specify the certificate via PFX file, which is kind of certificate container, and then the password. If you're not an admin guy or not familiar with what I'm showing right now, there is also an option to just use a username and password if you want to scan like one site. So there's other ways as well, but if you want to scan like large volume, bigger tenants, this is the recommended way. Let me zoom in so you see better. So you see the options, application, the Azure domain, the PFX file, and the password. Let's hit next. Next step in the scan is actually defining what to scan. Do I want to scan my complete tenant? Do I want to scan like a couple of site collections? Or do I provide a list with site collections to scan? Both for 3 options, and you have to pick one. So in this case, I'm going to say like select the site collections, and let's take, let me see, let me add copy like this /temp2. So now I added one particular site collection to scan. I can add more, I can use a wildcard here, or I can use a CSV file, or I can scan my full tenant. Up to you to choose what works best for you. Next. So in step 3, you have to define the scan mode. I'm scanning for what? I'm scanning for, there's a number of things to pick from. Let me zoom in again. Come on, here we go. Okay. So by default, the scanner will always scan for the Group Connect readiness mode, which is kind of the base scan component. You'll always get that no matter what you pick. But then you can choose. You can choose for like a list experience, for pages, for publishing portal, for workflow, for blogs, and infopods. See over here. So you just pick the mode that you need. Let's say that we want to do workflow. So I pick classic workflow, detailed. So you see the checkboxes being checked. So that's these check components are the ones being included in the scan. And then last step is configuring the scan. So you can bump the number of threads to like 20 if you have a powerful machine. In my case, I'm going to say set the separator to a semicolon and the date format to day, month, year, because I live in Belgium and for me that's more convenient, but you have a choice there. And if you hit start scan, you will see in the console window that the scanning is starting, and pretty soon you will see it hitting this first site/temp2. It scans that site, found one site, they're doing some processing, it will then move to the second site and so on. While the scan is running, right, it's already done. So now it's done, it outputs the data, creates reports, and then it ends. So we just created this folder with data. So each scan creates its output into a folder with a number. The number is just a timestamp, so you never overwrite existing data. And in here you have a set of CSV reports, which are just text files, which you can process in Excel or somewhere else in other applications, so you can just consume them for your needs. And these files are kind of summarized as well in those Excel files. So here we have also two Excel files. So let's open up the workflow Excel file, just to give you an idea what's inside. I need to enable content. Yes, so there's some kind of a Power BI model behind inside the Excel file that kind of does some data manipulation. So it takes a bit of time to load up the data, but here it is. And then the advantage of the Excel is that you can do some reporting and some filtering. So I can say like, give me the 2013 workflows, because that's the one that I'm interested in. The ones modified last year. So you see the sites, the workflow definitions in the sites where they are, and so on. So you have all the details over here. Now, if you want to use the same data in a more raw format, you would just open up the workflow scan results file. Let's open up in Notepad or something like that of code. So like this. Oops. it opened up in the wrong window, but anyhow, it's opening up just a CSV file with text. But let's get it open. Notepad. You see, basic CSV with text, nothing special there. See, for each count workflow, there is one line with text with all the details, all the columns. And all the columns are described in detail on the link that I mentioned at the beginning. All right, I think that kind of sums up the scanner part. Is there any questions on the scanner before I move to page transformation tech? So nothing in the chat so far, so all good, I think, I hope. If there's questions, don't hesitate to use the chat window to ask them. Good, let's close this. And then let's move to page transformation. So for page transformation, I have two demos. The first demo will actually be like what we call an in-place upgrade of a page. So if you have a theme site with wiki pages or web art pages, you can actually in place create a modern page equivalent. So if you go to the page library over here, you see that I have two pages, D88 story and D95 specs. So if I open up D95 specs, I go from the classic, from the modern UI back into classic. So you see, here's the ribbon. This is classic SharePoint. So I did like a context switch from modern to classic, which is not really nice because it might confuse your users. Why am I now suddenly in a different UI with a ribbon? The previous page did not have a ribbon and so on. If you put the page in edit mode, you will clearly see this is classic SharePoint. You see, it has like some text, image, a table with some formatted text, a third-party custom web art, a list showing here, and then a PowerPoint presentation showing as well. So let's stop editing. Now, how can we transform this page to be a modern page? And the best approach there is using page transformation via PnP PowerShell. Now, for the folks that have not used PnP PowerShell, you have to go to this address, ak.ms/svpnp-PowerShell. And if you do so, you'll end up in the PnP PowerShell overview with installation instructions. PnP PowerShell is there for these versions of SharePoint. The page transformation tech, however, is only available in the SharePoint Online version. Now, we actually are going to deprecate this particular version, and we are building a new one for PnP PowerShell. So if you are new to this and you want to try it out, I think maybe it's best to directly jump to the new one, and we'll actually announce the new one on this page once it is GA. It's not yet GA, but pretty soon it will be GA. But for now, if you go to this address, github.com/pnp/PowerShell, you can actually install our new PowerShell using install module pnp.PowerShell -allow pre-release, and then you're up and running. Another step that you would do when you use PowerShell is to register access to SharePoint using the register PnP management shell access. I think it's a good step to do. Then you can always log in with PnP PowerShell, even if you're using multi-factor authentication, for example. So, but I already did these things up front, and I have a PowerShell session open over here. So first step is connecting to my site. So my site was this one, the one with this page. So page transformation demo site. So let's connect to the site, and let's use the PnP management shell option. So I'm going to connect with connect-pnp online -URL, the URL to my site, and then -pnp management shell. If I do this, I'm going to have to use device login to enter, which is a technique in Azure AD. So I'm going to copy this code. I go to the page mentioned here, https://microsoft.com/device login. Let's just take device login. That should get me there. Yes. Okay, I enter the code. Next. Signing in. And now it mentions you've signed in successfully. So if we go back to here, I am. Let's do a quick get SP web. Oops, sorry, get PNP web, not SP web. You see that we get data and we get data, so all good here. Okay, so we are connected with Beam PowerShell to our site. Let's modernize our page. For that, there is the commandlet called convert to -PNP client side page. This one. You specify the page name, D95_specs. I'm going to override the page if it already exists. So if there was already a modern page created in a previous run, I'm just simply overwriting that one. I'm going to keep the page creation and modification information. So I'm going to keep the page author, change data, and so on. And I'm going to copy page metadata. So if the site pages library has metadata, then I'm going to copy that from the source page to the target page. That's what will happen over here. So if I hit enter, the page restoration tag starts to connect to the classic page, read the page, analyze it, look inside what are the web parts on the page, what's the layout of the page, and then it will translate that into a modern page and modern web parts and create a page, which happened right now. So it tells me like, okay, the page I created is migrated _d95_specs.aspx. So let's go to our site again, to the pages library. Let's refresh. And let's see, we have migrated _d95_specs. So that's good, that went well. Let's have a look at the page. And if you go to the page, you already see that there is no ribbon. So I stayed modern. This is a modern page. That's the same content, it just looks nicer. And it is fully modern. So it is ready to move forward in the future. If I click on edit, you will see that we translated the classic wiki page into an equivalent layout. So one column, then two column zone. And in the two column zone, there is different web parts and text pieces. So all kind of nicely put together. So yeah, meaning we have a pretty good fidelity when it comes to modernizing classic to modern. And for wiki pages and for web part pages, it's fairly simple. The thing that I did is that's what you have to do. There is nothing, no special sauce, no special things needed. To just running the command and it will do the work. All right, let's discard changes over here. And let's see where we are. Okay, this page is done. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk about publishing portals. So I'm going to close this and this. And I'm going to a publishing portal. So this is a publishing portal that I created. And let's be honest, I'm not a designer, so I'm not good at making fancy looking publishing portals, but I did my best. And this portal has a number of pages. For example, the D88 drone specifications page. Now, before doing that, let's have a look at some questions. There was a question, will this approach work for both team and communication sites? Well, the answer is yes. So if you have a classic team site today, you can simply upgrade the classic team site to be a modern site. At that point, it is, technically speaking, it's not a modern team site, it's also not a communication site, it's just a modernized site, but it has the same features. So your modernized team site can be teamified, it can have the same things as any other modern group connected team site. If you want to really move to a communication site, you can do as well, but then will have to do like what we call a cross-site transformation. So you read the page on the source site and create a modern page in the communication site, for example. And that's actually what I will be showing with this demo coming up in a second. So I will read a classic publishing page in the publishing portal and create it as a modern page in a communication site. Another question is, what happens when the publishing feature is activated on the classic theme site? Really good question. So you cannot really mix publishing with modern pages. There's also a reason why we, for this approach, do a cross-site transformation. So create a page on a different site collection. If you have publishing enabled on your theme site, if publishing is there just for like a web part or so on, like for the, let's say for the content by query web part, then you can leave it on. But if you're using pages or navigation from the publishing feature set, then you have to turn it off if you want to keep using the same site. So it's not compatible with modern pages, and we're not making that change in the future. So either turn it off, the publishing feature, or for those sites, think about can I move my pages and my content to a clean new site. At that point, when you move the pages, you can modernize them and create them as modern pages on the new site. And then there was one other question: will some web parts which can only be used in classic experience migrate into modern pages? No, meaning we have a mapping, and the mapping is publicly available. You can have a look at that. But we try to map all the old web parts to modern equivalents. Certain old web parts, well, they have no modern equivalent. And if that's the case, then the web part will not be transferred over. For example, if you use like an XML web part or Silverlight web parts, some really old things, well, there is no equivalent, so they will just stay behind. Good. Okay, we're going to modernize, let's say this page. Let me first put the page in edit mode. And I'll paste a link to the mapping in a second. Let me actually do that right now before I forget. So I can also show you guys where the modernization tag lives. So the PNP organization in GitHub contains an SPDEF modernization repository, which contains all the modernization tag, including page transformation, including the mapping file. So if you go over there, go to Tools, SharePoint Modernization, Modernization Framework. Here we have the code, and in here there's a web part mapping XML file. I'll just grab the link and paste it in the chat. Okay, but it's quite technical, but it kind of tells you what will happen. For example, if I take a XT web part, you'll see it is a web part that we can read, and we translate that to a modern list. If you scroll down to something at the very end, let's take something which is not supported. I know this is like a categories web part, not even sure what it does, but it's an old web part that does exist, but you see there is no mapping. The same for this one, so there's no mapping. So for some older web parts, you see that there's no mapping in here. You can change this file and try to map this to a custom one that you built, but most people just use the mapping file as it comes with the product. That being said, let's move back to where we were. So we were going to translate this publishing portal page into a modern page. The publishing portal page is based on a page layout. So the page layout is kind of the wireframe of all the pages in your publishing portal. So you might have multiple wireframes, multiple page layouts, but all pages are in the end based upon a page layout. The page layout defines these zones, so the page image, article date, etc., the actual text content, the roll-up image. The page layout might define fixed content on the page. So this content is available on all the pages based upon this page layout. You might have web parts on there as well and a footer. So fairly complex publishing page. And let's again stop editing this one. Okay, and let's modernize it. So the approach is really similar. it is going to connect to the site, to my page transformation demo portal. In this case, I'm going to use another approach in PHP PowerShell with a credential manager. So if you use the Windows credential manager and store your username and password in there, you can also connect with just minus credentials and pointing to your credential manager entry, which is also really convenient. So I'm going to connect. Get PNP web, just sanity check. Everything good? Yes, everything good. Then let's modernize this page, which goes like this. Similar commands, but slightly more complex because I'm actually doing a publishing page. So let's zoom in. Oops, that's probably too big, but I'll talk you through this. So identity is the page. I think that's obvious. If you transform publishing pages, you have to tell it's a publishing page. The minus override is again like if it already exists, override. Now, the key thing here is minus target web URL. So https .SharePoint.com/site/page transformation demo target. That's a different site than the site where we connected to, because we connected to the page transformation demo portal. So this is the target site, the one that will receive the modern page. In this case, this site is a modern communication site. Then we have the page layout mapping, which is a mapping file between the elements on this page towards the modern page. If you don't specify that, we'll use a default mapping. But with the mapping file, you can more precisely say like, I want, for example, this piece of text come into a section with 2 columns. This goes to the first column. I want to have this text going to the second column of that section, and so on. So you can really have more fine-grained control. We also have logging. You can log the disk to SharePoint or to the console. I'm going to log to SharePoint in this case, verbose log mode. Again, going to keep the page creation information mode data, sorry, and I'm going to post the page as news. So once I'm done with this, I should have like a news post on my target site with this page. So let's hit enter and let's see how this goes. This will take slightly more time because it's a more complex transformation. While this one is running, I can give a bit more details here as well. So when using this approach, you can also do user mapping. So if you come from on-prem to online, you can translate your on-premises users into users in SharePoint Online. We can do URL mapping as well. It will by default try to map URLs and kind of fix URLs, but you can kind of help the system by providing a URL mapping. Like this old URL will become this new URL. That will then help you kind of get better transformation results. And we even do like a managed metadata, so taxonomy mapping. So if you are using the taxonomy metadata fields in your source environment, let's say SharePoint on premises, you can then map a certain term set or term to its equivalent term set and term in modern SharePoint and SharePoint Online. So it's really featured a tech, this one, and this is documented in detail in the page that I already shared in the beginning, the AKDMS/SharePoint /SPNP-modernize. Yeah, good. But by now it was done. So let's go to our target site collection. So this was the target site collection, page transformation demo target. If we go to the pages library, well, actually, let's just refresh the home page. And let's scroll down. And we see here, sorry. Here's in our news, we see our page. So this is how the page that we just created is shown in the news feed on the home page of the site, which looks really good already. So let's click on it. Let's go to the page that we created. So this page is the same page as this one, but modern. So we took let's put this one in edit mode again. You see, for example, that we took the roll-up image here. This is a roll-up image of the page. We took that to build the header image. Then we just copied the content, the image, the table, and so on. Here we had a summary links web part with images and data. We just translated to this highlighted content web part. Now, if I put the page in edit mode, sorry, to the quick links web part, I was wrong. So summary links was translated to the quick links web part. Now, by default, we'll pick the list mode, but you can say in this case, maybe film strip gives a better result, looks nicer. So let's do that. Here you see the content which was fixed on the page layout, just taken over as regular content. So modern pages don't have the concept of page layouts. So there is no idea of fixed zones on a page that you cannot edit. So an author can edit all aspects of a modern page. We might introduce that capability in the future. We're talking about that, but nothing confirmed at this point in time. Here's again a summary links. So let's make this one also a film strip. And then you see a document web part and so on. So let's update. And we have a nice page. So there's a question, does the page take the latest version only? If not, so page transformation indeed reads the latest version of the page and creates the modern equivalent for that particular page. So we're not going to copy over, I translate all the previous versions as modern pages and have them sitting there without being used. So it's only the latest version that's being translated. Okay, but this is a real nice looking page coming from your classic publishing portal. So imagine this gives you like a way to kind of translate your classic publishing portals into modern communication sites with modern pages. One other thing, let's go to the pages library. We mentioned that we wanted to have logs, and we wanted to create the logs inside SharePoint. So if you do that, then you'll get the logs in a folder called Transformation Desk Reports. So if you go over here, I see, let's make it a little bit bigger. I see our currently transformation report from the transform that we just did in this demo. And if I click on this one, you will see the actual log content showing in here. The log is an MD file, and in this case, we have a modern page showing the MD content. You can also just have the log files output to disk if you prefer that, or to console. But this is also kind of a way to kind of provide the logs to the actual business owners for them to having a look at. And then they can delete the logs if they're happy with the result. Good, but that sums up the demo. I'm going to move back to slide to wrap up this presentation. So some key advices. First of all, stop growing your modernization debt today. If you're still creating classic sites, still doing classic things, although it is supported, in the end, you will have to modernize those sites. So the longer you wait, the more work you will have later on. So I think that if you can modernize already today, even if it's small steps, think about taking those steps, think about modernizing today. Modernization, it's not like a free lunch, meaning you will have to spend effort and energy and money and time to do it. So do it where it makes sense. Like if you have like 10,000 site collections in your tenant, of the 10,000, there's like half of them are probably not being used. There were things which you migrated from the past, which is still hanging around there, which is fine. It's kind of an archive. You need the data still, good, but leave that as is. Focus on the sites which generate value for you as a business, which are being used by your end users. And I think I already mentioned this, probably obvious, but start today. No point in waiting. The modern SharePoint UIs are like almost feature parity with classic UIs, or have additional features which are not available in classic UIs nowadays. We ironed out the bugs. It is fast, it is responsive, it works on mobile devices. So meaning there is no reason to not start modernizing today, actually. So after this call, think about it, try to make a plan, do some experimentation, and start to modernize. Here are some additional resources for you. I think all of them can be reached using the akdms/spnp address, but you can find those as well here. And I also want to do a kind of a shout out to the community. I'm not sure if there are people from the SharePoint developer community that are in this call, but if so, meaning this product, page modernization, the scanner, all of these components are open source, and they are what they are today, also thanks to the community. So appreciate that. I think with that, I'm at the end of the presentation, but we still have like a couple of minutes. So let's have a look at the chat window and for the questions. So now is the time to ask questions. If you haven't asked, we have a couple of minutes to cover them.
Thanks for a great presentation, Bert. Yes, we will now start the questions and answers part. And should you wish to ask a question, please type it into the question window now. I do think you dealt with the questions pretty much though, Bert, as they were coming in. That was great to see.
Yep, there's one open. Can you do a bullet transformation? And the answer is definitely yes, you can do that. Actually, let me see if I go back to here and go to this to the SPDF modernization repository, the one that I showed in the beginning. Here there are scripts, and we have page transformation scripts. And for example, there is like a convert publishing pages. Not sure what the author of the question was looking into, whether it was publishing pages or regular pages, but in the end, it boils down to writing a PowerShell script that iterates over the pages in the site and then does call convert PNP client-side page. So you can perfectly bulk automate that and do like modernize all the pages in the site altogether. Actually, modernization goes beyond pages. So if you look at the scripts over here, we have like a full modernized site collection script, especially for team sites, which does modernize the pages, but also does group connect the site, does teamify the site, does clean up all branding and so on. So there's like extensive scripts that does do a lot of cleaning work. So you see the steps that it does. So it will ensure modern pages can be used, deploy custom applications if needed, clean up branding, group connect, create a teams team, modernize pages as well. Not sure why it's not mentioned in the text, but it's there as well. But so all these scripts are there for you to kind of take as an example and build upon. Another question is, what about modernizing subsites? Yeah, that's just the same thing. Subsites can be modernized. Well, yes and no. Subsites can be modernized, so you can modernize the pages and get a model list and library experience, all good. Now, a subsite cannot be group connected. So group connection and Teamify, that's at site collection level. So your subsite will be just a modern subsite of your existing site. If you want to also group connect your subsite, because you need to have a dedicated team for that particular subsite, then you have to move that subsite into its own site collection, which you can do with classic migration tools. And also the other question kind of talks about it, how to migrate subsites. So yeah, either in place, if you can be a subsite, you can just in place upgrade it, modernize the pages, ensure that you use model lists and libraries, you're good to go. If you want to get more, want to use teams with the subsites, then you have to use migration tag to actually read the content. Content in this case is document libraries and lists. Copy that over to the new site, Then you can use page transformation tag to read the classic pages in the subsite and create them as modern pages in your new, let's say, communication site or your new modern team site. So you can do that, but you have to do a bit more work to make that happen, but it is possible.
Bert, thank you. I think that's it for the questions. We don't have any more questions, Bert.
All right.
So on behalf of the ESBC community, thank you for taking the time today, Bert, to complete this webinar. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you, Bert. And let me just bear with me here as we come back to my screen. Okay, everybody. So that is the end of today's webinar for today. Just a quick reminder that next week, please join us for Teams Week, where we will have a variety of blogs, ebooks, and webinars, all free and all online. Check out SharePointEurope.com for full details. This is the end of today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to Bert Janssen. All of this webinar and all previous episodes will be available in the Resource Center later today. Take care and goodbye.